In this video, I will be talking about the history behind the Russian invasion of Ukraine at February 24, 2022. Stay tuned to know more. I have been getting bombarded with images, posts, and stories that are mostly one-sided. Western countries and Western allied countries are constantly putting the blame on Russia, or to put it specifically, on the Russian government, represented by President Vladimir Putin. But we must remember that NATO countries, represented by the United States government, are as much to blame as Russia is. If you want to understand this complicated story, keep watching to enlighten yourself. You have to know the past to understand the present, the American scientist Carl Sagan famously said. In order to understand the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we must know first the background of Ukraine and Russia. Let's start with a brief history of Ukraine. Russians were descended from the earlier group of people, Rus, based in Kiev, now the capital of Ukraine. The city of Kiev fell due to Mongol attacks. Later on, lands later known as Ukraine became part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. The Russian Empire started its plans to incorporate Ukraine into the empire. The plan succeeded under the Russian Tsarina Catherine II. Ukraine, later on, became independent between 1917 and 1920. Afterward, it became one of the Soviet republics of the newly established Soviet Union until the latter's dissolution in 1991. Independent Ukraine was starting to get much closer to the North American Treaty Organization, or NATO in short, the defunct enemy of the alliance of communist countries, the Warsaw Pact. That is bad news to Russia. However, in November 2013, then Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, a pro-Russian president, rejected the proposal of closer ties with the European Union, of which most member countries are part of NATO. That led to a series of massive protests and, unfortunately, to a successful overthrow of the president. In order to save its influence, Russia backed the separatist movement in Crimea, the southern part of Ukraine. That led to the eventual Russian annexation of Crimea in 2014, which is not accepted by the majority of the international community. At this time, breakaway states of the Donbas region of Ukraine, Donetsk People's Republic, and Luhansk People's Republic fought for their independence. The Russian government supported these states. Very recently, on February 21, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin officially recognized them as independent countries. Another actor to our story is Russia. It claimed its roots to the Rus based in Kiev. Then, Russian lands became part of the Golden Horde, a khanate that was part of the Mongol Empire. This invasion made Russia isolated from Europe and separate from Ukraine. However, it became independent from the Mongol Empire. It gradually emerged as the Russian Empire. It experienced more invasions from the French Napoleonic War and the Germans World War I. The destruction of the World War I led to the Russian Revolution of 1917. Then, in 1922, Vladimir Lenin transformed Russia as a communist country under the full name the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR, commonly known as the Soviet Union. Later on, it reintegrated Ukraine into the newly established communist country. Lenin's successor, Joseph Stalin, started a command economy in the country. It means that the government has the sole authority on the economic policies of the country. He also started the Great Purge to get rid of his enemies. He was succeeded by Nikita Khrushchev in 1953, with his policy of de-Stalinization. The last Soviet leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, introduced glasnost, openness, perestroika, restructuring, and democratization. These policies led to the break of the Soviet Union and the independence of Ukraine. The Russian President Boris Yeltsin adopted a shock therapy in the economy, a strategy of sudden adoption of capitalism in Russia. That led to inflation and the loss of jobs. Unrest emerged until the emergence of Vladimir Putin as acting president from 1999 to 2000, as president from 2000 to 2008, as prime minister from 2008 to 2012, and as president again from 2012 to the present time. He emerged as the savior of modern Russia because he provided stability in the country, a situation that no post-Soviet leaders had done. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, there have been some apprehensions from the Russian government regarding the eastward expansion of NATO influence. It has viewed such expansion as a threat to the security of the Russian territory. Let's add the fact that most of the former Soviet republics and former allies under the Warsaw Pact are now part of NATO. Geographically speaking, Russia is now surrounded by countries allied to NATO. The Russian government could not tolerate such expansion that it invaded Ukraine under the so-called special military operation. That's a very good example of euphemism, guys. To quote, demilitarize and denazify Ukraine, unquote. The first one aims to reduce the security threat Ukraine poses to Russia. The second one pertains to the supposed Ukrainian government's persecution of Russians similar to the Nazi persecutions of the Jews during World War II. Many reports wrote that the Russian government's real aim is to overthrow Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and to install a pro-Russian president. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky pleaded to NATO to help his country. However, the NATO did not respond to his pleas, fearing that the war may escalate into something bigger. Some experts say that it has a high probability that it escalates into a third world war if the Russian military attacks takes place near the border of NATO allied countries. Another scenario would be a Russian attack to NATO allied countries. Another scenario would be a participation of China, a long-term ally of Russia and of the then Soviet Union. Knowing that NATO countries did not help Ukraine, China might invade Taiwan, not considered as an independent country by the majority of the international community, as soon as possible, thereby disrupting peace not just in Europe but also in Asia. Also, the enemies of the West, such as Iran and North Korea, might join forces with Russia and China to defeat the hegemony of the West. Who's to blame if World War III happens? Both the NATO, headed by the United States, and Russia. We must blame the NATO because it still continued its existence way beyond the Cold War years, starting wars in Middle East in countries such as Iraq and Afghanistan. And such existence is hurting the collective memory of the Russians of being invaded many times. We must also blame Russia because it seems to re-establish the Soviet Union or the Russian Empire by conquering its long-lost territories or allies. These actions are against the democratic principles enshrined by the NATO. Don't believe anyone telling you that it's a battle of right and wrong. In this game called international politics, morality and ethics are not that important to determine who'll win. What's important is power. Who's got more power? In short, it's a battle of might against might. In this case, the might of the NATO versus the might of Russia. If you enjoy this video, just click the like button. Comment down below for your thoughts. Share these to your relatives and friends who are still confused about the Russo-Ukrainian war. Subscribe to this channel to watch more videos like this. Click the bell icon button to get notified first whenever I upload contents like this. And see you on the next video.